no furniture. They have access.
Breaking news now, the story we've been following here on KCAL 9, that deadly stabbing spree in Garden Grove and Santa Ana.
We now go to the live update from Garden Grove Police. Let's listen in.
Behind me, and we believe our two victims in the apartment somehow confronted the suspect and an altercation occurred. Our two victims were stabbed to death. One died inside the apartment, and the guy on the balcony that was stabbed was taken to a local hospital where he succumbed to his injuries at a local trauma center. We've learned so far that our suspect does reside here in the same apartment complex. We're not going to release his apartment number, but he does reside in the same complex as our two victims. The silver Mercedes that was used in all the crimes is also registered here at the same apartment complex behind me. So after the homicide happened with our two victims, our suspect went to the Cash and More business located at 12845 Harbor Boulevard. He conducted another robbery where cash was taken, and he used a knife to threaten his victims. So right now we have our homicides happening, so we're a smaller department, so we were handling the homicide and responded to different calls for service. So we responded to the Cash and More business, realizing it was our same suspect, and the information was put out to our officers in the area to be on the lookout for the silver Mercedes. At 6:06 p.m., we get a 211 robbery silent alarm at a business which is located at 12843 Harbor Boulevard. This business was called Best One Insurance. A female employee, she's Hispanic, she's 54 years old, I believe. She was inside the business, and their suspect came inside, confronted her, and he was armed with some type of machete knives, and he attacked the female taking money from the business. This female employee was very brave. This guy was armed with knives. She fought as best she could against this armed suspect and sustained multiple stab wounds. He fled the business with cash, and shortly thereafter went to a business right next door. That business located right next door was the Cash and More business that happened prior to that. So after the robbery with the female, stab wounds, she were able to get information from the alarm company telling us that there was a robbery that happened, and on a live feed they could see that the female victim was on the ground with blood and multiple injuries, and we responded to that scene. So right now we have multiple scenes going on, robberies, we have our homicide behind us. We have the female down inside the business, so our resources are getting drained pretty quickly here in Garden Grove. Right after that, at 6:09 p.m. at the Chevron station at Harbor and Banner, we get a call of a male that was attacked inside the parking lot. The male, he was at the gas pumps, pumping gas, when our suspect pulled in his vehicle and confronted our victim and attacked him for no apparent reason. There was no robbery or whatever. He just attacked the guy pumping gas. He sustained traumatic injuries. His nose was nearly severed off his face, and he received a stab wound to his back. So our officers converged on that scene. Again, multiple scenes going on at the same time, and we begin investigating. Witnesses start coming forward. They're showing us video of their phone showing that the suspect vehicle, realized that this was our same suspect. I got to give it a hand to the public. A lot of citizens came forward and rendered aid to the guy with his nose that was nearly cut off. They were willing to come forward to help the police department, give us information that was crucial in getting this guy identified, and they helped this guy who was been stabbed and sustained the serious injuries. So the public really stepped up to help this guy. While that was happening, we had undercover detectives that responded to the area to assist us with all the calls for service that were happening. We were told that the silver Mercedes fled on Harbor Boulevard and went southbound into the city of Santa Ana. Our undercover detectives driving undercover vehicles immediately drove south on Harbor Boulevard, started checking the area, checking business parking lots, and they got to the intersection of Harbor and First. They pulled into the 7-Eleven parking lot, and they saw that the Mercedes, our suspect vehicle, was parked in front of the 7-Eleven. Within a minute of them arriving on scene, our suspect comes out of the store. He's carrying a handgun that he disarmed from the security guard. He's carrying a large knife. Our officers get out of their vehicles. They confront the suspect at gunpoint. They tell the suspect to get on the ground. The suspect ends up dropping the weapon. He dropped the handgun, he dropped the knife, and he was taken into custody. At the same time, we get told that there's a security guard down inside the business suffering multiple stab wounds, and that the suspect had just stabbed him inside the store. What we learned is that the suspect went into the 7-Eleven store, followed the security guard inside the business. At some point, there was an altercation between the armed security guard and our suspect, where suspect stabbed the security guard multiple times, and ultimately ended up using his knife to cut the gun off the security guard's duty belt. He comes out, he's confronted by our undercover detectives, where he was taken into custody. While this was happening, we were told that another robbery happened at the subway prior to the 7-Eleven incident. Just prior to this, where our suspect went to the 7-Eleven and he attacked a male inside the subway and stabbed him. That victim ultimately succumbed to his injuries, and he was deceased. So we have 2 homicides in Santa Ana, one at the subway, one at the 7-Eleven. We have the 2 homicides in the apartment complex right behind me, the multiple robberies, and we have 2 other people that were stabbed. The guy at the Chevron that nearly lost his nose, and we have the female at the insurance company who fought off the suspect during the robbery. So we have 2 victims that are stabbed with serious injuries. The male and female are expected to survive. They're in stable condition at a local trauma center. And then we have our 4 deceased victims. So what happens now? We have to work with our detectives, have to work these multiple scenes. It's going to take us all night to work these scenes, to collect evidence, to build a strong case against the suspect. Even though at multiple locations there's video of the suspect actually doing this crime, we have video that shows him attacking these people and conducting these murders. So that's going to be great evidence for us for prosecution. We're working with Santa Ana PD. They've been very cooperative. They're going to handle the 2 scenes down in Santa Ana at Harbor and First, at the 7-Eleven, and the subway. So our district attorney's been out here. We've reviewed the case with her. We're going to go through this investigation, compile all our evidence for all our cases, and ultimately one case is going to be presented to the DA for prosecution of our suspect. Our suspect currently is at the Garden Grove Police Department being interviewed by our detectives. He's going to be taken to the crime lab, be processed for evidence, and we're going to go from there to find out what his motive was behind there. So we know there was at least 3 different robberies that happened where cash was taken. 4 people needlessly lost their lives tonight from this savage suspect. This is a brutal attack. And then we have our other people that were stabbed but survived their injuries. So it's going to take some time for us to get through this, and it's going to be an all-night case for our detectives into the rest of this week. So we're going to be collecting evidence. We'll be out here for hours. We'll be here through the night trying to gather evidence and find out why this suspect did what he did. I have Lieutenant Rich Barrio. He's our detective lieutenant. He's going to be out here with his detectives all night. If there's anybody that needs a Spanish-speaking person to do an interview, Lieutenant Barrio will be able to help with that. So right now, I'll open up to any questions. If you have any questions, I'm willing to take those questions right now.
Is there a history, have police been called to his location? Is there a history with maybe his brother or his family members?
Can you repeat that?
Is there any history of police being called?
That is Lieutenant Carl Whitney with the Garden Grove Police Department describing that stabbing spree that occurred earlier tonight in Garden Grove. It all started with some sort of confrontation, Susie, at an apartment complex on Gents. 4 people dead and all 2 injured and 2 other people robbed.
That's right.